on ways that you can be able to communicate with your teams, right? So, and that, how does that look? It might be looking at the frequency. How often do you have meetings? What kind of platform are you going to use? Is it Zoom or Skype or WhatsApp or Line or whatever? What are the durations of those meetings that you're going to have? Are they short and sharp? Are there? How do you communicate urgently, and how do you communicate non-urgently? Will you have a Gantt chart to monitor, or will you have some kind of action plan process, or some kind of app like Trello or Slack or whatever it's going to be? So together as a team, you want to agree on these communication strategies. Yeah. And then the second really, really important part was agree how to measure effectiveness, right? So again, you're not going to have as much time to engage with your teams. So you want to agree, how are you going to measure their effectiveness, right? In other words, are they doing what they are supposed to do? Is it aligned with their job description? So KPIs, key performance indicators, need to be agreed. It might be a specific due date for a task or a project. Project milestones. So if it's a big project, you want to have some milestones along the way. Project completion is obviously a key indicator. And then urgent versus important, prioritization, etc. Right? So this is how you're going. And by the way, if you've not done this before with your teams, it's something that you need to have a discussion. Now, these discussions might be had one-on-one with your team. So someone working on a certain project would have a different measure of effectiveness, you know, comparing to someone like an accountant or someone doing another task, customer service, sales, whatever it is. You need to get a little bit creative to find the way. Okay, let me just quickly see how I can mute everyone here for a second. Muting all. Allow participants to unmute themselves. No. Very good. All right. So we're back online here now. So that was basically last week's content, guys. That was your turbo review. Take a look at YouTube, and then you can catch not just last week's, but the weeks before as well. Details will follow in the email later tonight. So, we also covered delegation last week. So very quickly, I don't want to go into details on this, but very, very quickly, how do you be more effective as a delegator or a virtual leader? You want to make a list, an inventory of all you, the leader, your current duty, task, projects, and wherever you're spending your time, right? Don't start to just delegate, just bang, bang, shoot from the hip. Make an inventory, because you might be surprised at what you can delegate, which is point number 2. Clearly identify which tasks can be delegated and to who you're going to delegate them to, right? So there's the urgent versus priority matrix. You can Google that on how to kind of work out who you should be delegating to. And by the way, you can delegate to subordinates, peers at the same level, or you might decide to outsource some of your delegation to a contractor or another organization. Delegate the task clearly by sharing all of the details and all of your expectations. Remember, most of the time, if you're delegating something, you understand that task, that project, that thing very, very well. So your level of awareness is kind of like here. Generally, the person you're delegating to, their level of awareness about that task or project is a lot less than you. So what that means, you need to kind of simplify your language and make very, very clear instructions so that they understand. You want to set them up for success, clearly. And then you check back as often as is needed, not looking over their shoulder every 5 minutes. After delegation, you might check the day after, then a 2-day gap, and then a 3-day gap, until you can see that they're making progress. And of course, you're going to support them as needed. Cool. Clear communication is how you're going to resolve 95% of all your problems, personal and professional. So what does that mean? Communicate more. Excellent. So here we go, ready to rock and roll for today's new content, guys. guys and girls. I did mention this briefly last week. Your true role as a leader is to create certainty in uncertain times. And again, this is wherever you are on your leadership journey. You might not be a leader yet, or you might be a supervisor or a middle manager or the CEO. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, your focus, your intention should be to create certainty in uncertain times. What do I mean by that is if you coming into the workplace, whether it's in face or virtual or whatever, and if you as the leader are freaking out, if you're overwhelmed, if you're stressed and anxiety and all of that going on, well, you are going to project that onto your teams, right? And then that's just going to make for a very unproductive team. So we are living in times of a lot of uncertainty right now. So even with all of this going on, even if your business is struggling or you're not quite sure how to do it, then do the best that you can to create certainty. And we're going to cover some more tips on that specifically today on how you can do that. So we talked about evolution, and evolution is super, super important for yourself personally and also for yourself professionally. And we're going to understand why evolution is so, so important. So let's take a look at the definition first so we're all aligned. Evolution is the gradual development of something, especially from a more simple to a more complex form. Complex, or it could even be more advanced as well. So Tony Robbins says famously, if you don't know who Tony Robbins is, he's one of the world's best coaches. He'll charge you a cool $1 million if you do one-on-one coaching with him. He also does, 4, 5, and 6 day seminars all around the world with like 20,000 participants in them. He's been around for about 40 years or so. He just turned 60, I believe. So he's been in the personal development scene for more than 40 years. And what he says famously is, if you're not growing, you're dying. Now, when I first heard this, I thought, whoa, that's a bit like intense, isn't it? Like, oh, geez, I'm dying, really? Until I learned more of his content and I studied more about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And as I became a professional coach, what it means is, guys, if you're not continually growing and improving yourself, while you might not be physically dying, inside here, your brain begins to shut down. You don't create any new neural networks, which is how the whole process of learning is, to create more neural networks in our brain. So in other words, if we keep doing the same thing over and over, if we have the same thoughts and we have the same emotions day to day, and we keep doing the same tasks and we have the same routine and we keep doing those same things over and over and over again, well, that's that 95% of our subconscious mind. So we're literally on autopilot, right? We just we're on the hamster wheel of life, just going around and around in circles. So what happens is, if we do not learn anything new, we're not creating any new neural networks in our brains. And so what happens is our brain begins to kind of disintegrate in a way, because it thrives on connection. It thrives on evolution and becoming a better version than we were yesterday, right? Improving ourselves is not about being better than someone else. Improving ourselves is to become a better version of the person that we want to be. Think about it this way. If you want to achieve a new level of success, whatever that is for you, you want to buy your own house, you want to get promoted, you want to start your own business, whatever that is for you, to grow from this level to this level, it's going to involve some kind of new thinking, new behavior, and then new emotions, right? And behavior is simply actions, things that you do. But you won't come up with new behaviors, new actions. You won't come up with anything different unless you start to think differently first. Now, as children, we know the importance of continued growth and development. When we're born, we start to crawl, and then we start to walk, and then we start to ask mummy, mummy, daddy, daddy, and we're hungry to learn. We're like a sponge taking in all of the information around us. So we know as kids that part of our purpose on this planet is to continually grow and evolve. What happens though is when we get a little bit older, when we reach a certain level of success, we forget or choose not to continue to nurture this. And as a result, our happiness and our fulfillment begins to decline. But let me explain this a little bit more differently this time. First of all, in the little green circle there is your familiar zone. That's everything that you know. That's what you are consciously aware of. Outside of the little green circle is what you don't know. It is what is unfamiliar, but it's also where your growth happens. Because guess what? Are you going to achieve that new goal, whatever that goal is for you? Is that going to happen in your familiar zone, or are you going to need to do something different? Different thoughts, different behaviors, different actions, different emotions? It's definitely going to be something different. So what happens is you learn something new, and then boom, you have a breakthrough. You have an aha moment. You've suddenly understood more about yourself or life or that situation or whatever's going on. So as a result, your awareness, your consciousness, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, whatever it is, begins to grow and improve. So now you're starting to grow. But then you don't want to become complacent, right? Complacent means, oh, I've made it. I'm just going to stay here in my familiar zone, which I'm sure you've all heard as well, is the comfort zone. No, we don't want to stay in the comfort zone, because if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to achieve what we've always got. So we must be willing to do something different. So we learn something new, we read a book, we go to a webinar, we attend a course, whatever it is, boom, we have another breakthrough, we have another aha moment. We're able to create new neural networks inside of our mind. You see, the learning process is through association. When we kind of observe or learn something new, we first try to compare it to something that is already known. As we make that bridge, as we make that connection, now we form a new neural network. In other words, your capacity to think and process information has grown. Your awareness and your consciousness has grown to another level because you're creating new neural networks inside here. Now that process though, it needs to keep going, right? A lot of adults, as they get to a certain age or a certain level of success, they become complacent. But here's the thing, when you stop growing, you start dying. And while it might not be a physical death, mentally you become numb. Mentally you kind of tune out. And for sure, your level of happiness and fulfillment will begin to decrease, right? So this continuous growth and evolution is absolutely important for you wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing right now, right? Quick example. My background, I'm from Australia. I worked in the manufacturing industry for 10 years packing boxes. So my familiar zone, my comfort zone looked a little bit like this, like totally like itty bitty and tiny. And then I thought, after 10 years, I thought there must be more to packing boxes. So I attended a personal development seminar, and what do you think happened? Boom. Then I thought, I want to travel the world. So because I realized there was a lot that I did not know about life. So I backpacked around the world for a year. Did I learn a lot during that trip? Absolutely. Boom, another breakthrough. And then I arrived to Thailand and I started to work in hospitality. I was in beautiful Koh Samui, Thailand, and I worked in hospitality for 10 years. I got to the level of GM. I had a great salary eating my tom yum goong from a coconut. But after 10 years, I had stopped growing, right? I wasn't reading books anymore. I wasn't doing any webinars, any courses, anything. And so my mind started to go numb. And my happiness started to tank. Even though I was on a tropical island earning $5,000 a month, I was no longer happy. Thankfully, I caught it and I decided, no, I want to do more than this. I want to become a coach and a trainer. So then, boom, I moved to Bangkok. That was 10 years ago now. And then, of course, I then expanded more beyond that as well to be a professional coach and trainer for the last 10 years now. Now, what do? Myself and Christy, what we do is we attend at least 3 or 4 different courses per year around the world to continue that growth and evolution for ourselves personally, but also for our clients as well, so we can better serve our community, right? So it's an ongoing process that does not stop. Now, I want to compare this a little bit to what some of you may have heard before, is what we call the product life cycle. So this is from the world of sales and marketing. And what we say is whenever a product is released, let's call it a telephone, for example. We have what we call the introduction. So at the beginning of the introduction of a product, you can see we have sales on the left-hand side and time going across the bottom there. So introduction, the sales takes a little bit of time to kind of build up momentum. But then we hit the second quadrant there where we move into growth. So then the sales begin to pick up. Then we're at maturity. That's when the sales are just going like gangbusters. We're selling a lot. It's go, 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 go. Now, if nothing happens and nothing changes, what will eventually happen is there'll be a decline in that product. A classic example of this graph that you're seeing right here, right now, is the Nokia telephone, right? Or Blockbuster video, right? Think of something that used to be really popular back in the day, but they didn't change, they didn't evolve, they didn't adapt. What happens is that product, the demand for that product from the market, from the people out there, it simply declines and then they stop running that product. Now, it doesn't have to be this way all of the time. There is an opportunity for those forward-thinking companies to actually continue the upward trend. Now, it doesn't happen by itself, though. They need to innovate, right? They need to listen to what the market wants, not what they think the market wants, but what the market actually wants, and then they need to innovate. They need to iterate, which means make some small changes. A classic example of that is probably the iPhone, right? So I don't know how many years ago the iPhone was launched, but then they come out with iPhone 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, and I don't even know what number they're up to now. So what they're doing is they're making small iterations to keep the market engaged in the product and service that they offer. Sometimes companies will decide to rebrand to keep it fresh and to keep it new, and in that way continue to grow sales. Or there might be some other kind of renewal or something like that. So I think you get the point. This is what we call product life cycle when we're talking about a product. So as Christy and I were discussing this through the week as we were building the content for today, I thought, I wonder if there's something similar for the personal growth cycle. And looking around, I found nothing online. So I thought, okay, why don't we look at some of the clients and businesses and companies that we've worked with and take a look and see how does it work for us as individuals. So this is what we came up with. This is our personal growth cycle. And we're all going to be on different levels of this cycle. And again, it's not about comparing someone to another one. It's about us becoming a better version of we were yesterday. So we have the growth. The axes are a little bit different. We have growth going along the bottom, and then we have happiness on the vertical. And we have our childhood. Now, unlike the product life cycle, which was a slow increase like that when the product is just introduced, as we know, kids are generally, they're happy and they love to grow. So it's quite a steep upward trend for children, right? And pick an age, I don't know, from birth to 10 or 12 years old, definitely before they get to teenage years. And that's what comes next, so adolescence. So what happens is, yes, as adolescents, we're still growing, but as you all know, as we go through adolescence, we have our highs and our lows of emotion. And you know, this is a general chart. It might be different for you. This is based on, 10,000 hours of coaching that Christy and I have done with clients and companies. And then we get to being an adult as well. And you can see what happens though, for most people, it kind of begins to taper off when they've achieved some kind of life goal. And that might be married with kids in a nice house with a nice job. Whatever it is for each individual, there's no judgment here. It's just that a lot of people out there in society begin to taper off. Now, there are some reasons, though, why that curve begins to flatten out a little bit like that. some of those reasons are the conditions or the rules that we make for ourselves in order for what needs to be happy. In other words, we say things to ourselves like, when I have this house, I will be happy. That is what we call a condition or a rule. When I get married, I will be happy. When I have children, I will be happy. When I get promoted, I will be happy. So what we're doing is we're making the focus of our happiness on having achieved something. And so those conditions and rules actually limit us from the happiness that is inherently, we deserve to be happy. We did not get born onto this planet to be sad and miserable. So these rules and conditions that we apply to ourselves are oftentimes unconscious, meaning that we're not even aware of what they are. Some other reasons why this curve flattens out a bit is expectations, which could be unrealistic expectations of ourselves or unrealistic expectations of others. So what happens then when we or others don't meet those elevated expectations, we're going to feel disappointed, sad, frustrated, or angry. So again, this is why the happiness, it's hard to keep on growing. And of course, it might dip like this, and you know, in life, we know that it goes like this. This is on average, okay? Other reasons why our happiness might begin to decline are significant emotional events, such as losing a job or losing a loved one or going through a divorce or financial hardship, something significant. And that, of course, is going to reduce our level of happiness and other life challenges that might happen, right? Make sense so far? Cool. Now, we have a choice. Whatever age of adult you are, whether you're 25, 55, or 75, you have a choice at this moment in time. And that choice is, there's basically one of two choices. If we become complacent, meaning that if you do not continue to nurture this, if you feel that you've reached a certain level and there's nothing else to learn, there's nothing else to grow, then you are not firing and wiring new neural networks. You become very, very complacent. The mind goes on autopilot, and I guarantee your happiness will begin to reduce. And what is the example of that, guys, is think about it. Do you know someone who has money and they've got quite a bit of money? They've got the stuff, right? They've got the big house, and they've got the car, and they have what seems to be a good relationship. They've got the, you know, the 2.4 children and the white picket fence, and they've got all of that stuff going on, but they're not happy. Have you ever met someone like that? Yeah, I have. And so basically why they are not happy is because they've reached that certain level of success and they've stopped learning, they've stopped growing, they've stopped nurturing this. And that's what the graph looks like, right? So yes, they've kind of made it, they've grown to a certain level, but as their growth, as they basically stop growing, the only way that level of fulfillment and happiness can go is down. Now, again, regardless of your age or your demographic or where you are in the world, you do have a choice. And how do you continue to increase your happiness is to become a continuous learner. And there are 1,000 different ways we can learn new tools, techniques, ideas, have different thoughts. You know, you can read books, webinars, and YouTube and courses, and you name it. There are literally thousands of different ways. So what we want to do is to consciously and proactively continue to learn. In doing so, you're firing more neural networks, you're finding new ways to grow, therefore you're finding new ways to be happy. Yeah? I hope that makes sense. That's the first time we've taught that concept. So let us know in the comments, does that make sense? Or do you have any questions? Because I'd be interested to know, as that's the first time that we've taught that. Now, how does all this begin then to link into ego, right? So I think we've covered now that it is important to continually grow and evolve ourselves, both personally and professionally. It's absolutely imperative that we do that if we want to maintain a higher level of both fulfillment and happiness. Now, as we continue to grow, we have this thing called ego. And ego can be our friend or it can be our foe, like our enemy. And so let's take a look at the definition again so we're all on the same page. Ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, right? Now, it is a balancing act to have a balance of ego. If our ego is too strong, then we come across as being arrogant, or we know everything, or I'm better than. And no one really likes to hang out with somebody like that, right? Or the opposite end of the stream, an unhealthy ego might be where you don't stand up for yourself, where you let people walk all over you, where you're too busy trying to please others before pleasing yourself. So having a healthy ego is about finding that balance between the two on your journey of growth and personal and professional development, right? Because as you grow, your self-esteem or your importance is beginning to change as well. As you grow and evolve, you will have a different identity, that kind of hat that you wear. For example, I was 10 years in manufacturing, packing boxes. I then traveled the world for a year. So I had the identity of a backpacker. And then I worked in hospitality for 10 years. So then I had the identity of a hotelier. And then now I'm a professional coach and trainer. So I have that identity. So that will involve a different level of ego. So let's take a look at some of the distinctions so we can control, or more importantly, evolve beyond our ego, so we can lead our teams more effectively, so we can create the life that we want and deserve. Now, I'll start with this first, guys. Little language alert here. I use the word douchebag because I think most people know what douchebag is, but the word that I wanted to use was what I wanted to say was don't be a dick. And excuse my language, guys, but I've just got to say it like it is. Don't be a dick, right? Be the kind of person that you would want to be with. In other words, and let me share a little snippet of my life when I joined Hotel World about 20 years ago. So here I was, I just finished backpacking around the world, and I got employed to work at a beautiful little hotel in Koh Samui with zero hotel experience and zero hospitality degree or anything like that. So here I am in this beautiful little resort, and I could suddenly, remember, I'd just been backpacking for a year, so I hardly had any money. I was sleeping at hostels and dormitories and friends' sofas and on the beach and all the kind of weird stuff that backpackers do. Now, here I am in this beautiful resort. I can get 3 meals a day, snacks when I want, wine when I want. So immediately that all went to my head, and I thought my self-importance, I thought I was so good because I got this role. Thankfully, I had an amazing boss and mentor whose name was Ole Larsen. He was kind of like a Viking, actually. And gee whiz, he was hardcore on me. He would say things to me like, look at you walking around like a peacock with all of your feathers flying around like this. Because I was demanding, I was strutting around like I knew everything. And remember, I knew nothing about hotels. So thankfully, Ole kind of kept me in check. And maybe I was a bit of a slow learner. He needed to remind me often and frequently and intensely. And the way that he used to say it to me, he said, look at you, Luke, look at this behavior that you just did. And I would look and I would go, because I was just so unaware. My level of consciousness was down here. I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he would say to me, look at that behavior that you just did. Look at how you spoke to your staff over there. He said, would you want to be friends with someone like you? And I thought about it and I thought, actually, no. That thing that I just did, that was me being a dick. And I don't want to be a dick, right? So again, apologies for the language. I just want to emphasize the point, guys. On your leadership journey, don't be a douchebag. Don't be a dick. Be the kind of person that you would want to engage with, that you would want to be, that you'd want to learn from, that be that kind of person that could be a mentor to other people. And deep down, we know when we're being a douche, right? So stop it, right? If you find that, and by the way, it will happen as you grow and evolve. You'll get to a new level of success where everything is new and shiny and sparkly, and you'll be like, wow, look at me, this is so cool. That's the trap, right? That's where you need to be really, really careful that your ego doesn't get out of control. So let's take a look. These are some of the more negative or bad signs of ego. And by the way, so this is the behavior that you might see in yourself that gives you a clue that your ego is a bit, let's say, out of check, or perhaps not quite as healthy as it could be. We'll use the word bad for now. If you have any other suggestions, guys, please pop them into the chat box now of what does a bad or unhealthy ego look like. I know everything. I know everything. That's an unhealthy ego, or an ego that is out of proportion. I'm the smartest person in the room, right? Now, that might be true, but you don't have to tell the whole world that you're the smartest person in the room, right? A healthy ego is you can know it and you can own it, but you don't have to shout, hey, look at me, look at how smart I am. We don't need to do that with a healthy ego. My way is the best way, or the only way. That is a sign that our ego is out of balance. Yeah. Call me boss. I love that. But look, it says boss here. Call me the boss. I'm the big boss, right? I'm never wrong. Never wrong. I'm the most important person in the organization. This organization would crumble if I wasn't here. They wouldn't survive without me. Do as I say, not as I do. Smells like bad ego to me. Someone with a strong ego, a bad ego, is very quick to blame others when things don't go their way. Oftentimes, people with a high ego will always appear to be too busy, or they'll tell you and remind you often of how busy they are. And because they're busy, it means they don't have time to listen to you. That is a clue of inflated ego. They will take all the credit for whatever work their team is doing. Right? What other answers have we got here? Being a loudmouth, never listen to others' ideas, keep arguing the point, disguised as debate. Beautiful. Yep. What else have we got there? Yeah, ego checking often because of the new level of success. Yep. So great, you get the point, guys. Now, of course, we want to have a balanced ego. As you continue to grow, you'll transform into new identities. Therefore, you'll have new ways of engaging with your own self-esteem and your own self-importance. So it's as we're moving into a new identity. For example, you get promoted, you start a new job, you start your own business, you achieved a high level of success. So you know, that's where you need to be extra mindful about where these, you know, bad ego characteristics might raise themselves. Yes, we have a question. Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, what if I think ego, but I'm not really displaying the ego? I have a strong suspicion if I'm thinking a lot of egotistical thoughts, I will be displaying that behavior. Why? because you can look at a couple of webinars ago, we discussed how our thoughts connecting with our body language creates our emotional state. So in other words, there's a synergy that our thoughts affect our body and our body affect our thoughts. So in other words, you will display some behavior of high ego if you're having high ego thoughts. Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the healthy ego that is actually very beneficial in your role as a leader. And again, if you have any other characteristics of what healthy ego might look like, please pop it in the comments now. So self-confidence is a beautiful one. Not overconfident, not arrogant, just a beautiful, I like to say, quietly confident, right? They don't need to tell the world how good they are. They just own it quietly, yeah? Healthy ego will be the ability to create certainty, especially in these uncertain times. Healthy ego will lead by example. They will also admit mistakes, right? So when a mistake is made, they'll own it, they'll take ownership of it, and they will share that with the people that that are important. And they'll take ownership, right? Especially if there's some decisions to be made or something bad went wrong. A great leader, someone with a healthy ego, can take ownership of that. A great leader with a healthy ego will protect their team. So what does that look like? Maybe the boss is trying to have a go at one of your subordinates. You, with a healthy ego, you will stand up and defend your team. Why? Because you take responsibility for what they did or didn't do that may have caused a problem. Healthy ego continues to learn and grow. Healthy ego will be decisive, right? So they'll make decisions and then they'll own the consequences, good or bad, of whatever happens. And someone with a healthy ego doesn't always have to be right, right? It's okay to be wrong. So these are some examples of healthy ego. Has anyone got any more examples of healthy ego, please? Yep. Empowering, helps others, self-love without vanity. I love that one. Calm. Nice one, Alan. Yeah, a healthy ego is calm. And this is that certainty in uncertain times. They have a good EQ. Ego does have a strong relationship with our childhood. And that's why sometimes if you're struggling with managing your ego, you might need to look at some of those significant emotional events that happened in the past. And that's what we do with NLP coaching. We basically support clients to reprogram themselves to become who they want to be. Not who others tell them they should be, but who they want to be. Because the client is always in control of their identity, who they want to become. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you guys get the point. Fantastic. Thank you. Now, this also, the health of our ego also links to the 6 human needs. This is a concept shared or created by Tony Robbins. We've heard of something probably when most of us went to school of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I like to think of these 6 human needs as almost like an evolution or a rebrand, if you want to call it that, of those original Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And according to Tony Robbins, every human on the planet has 6 human needs. So a need means it's something that we need to feel fulfilled, that we need to exist with happiness on this planet. So let's take a look at them one by one. The first one is, the first of the human needs is certainty. So as you can see there, assurance that you can avoid pain and gain pleasure. Also safety and security. So in other words, in English, what does that look like? Certainty might be a roof over your head, food in the fridge, clean drinking water, the safety of yourself and the people that you care about, knowing that a gang of thugs is not going to bust through the door. So this is what we call the need of certainty. Now, we can see at the moment that's happening in the world right here, right now, people's level of certainty as a general population on the planet has actually dropped at the moment because there's so much uncertainty at the moment. We don't know when lockdown is finished. We don't know how long this COVID is going to go on. We don't know when we can fly again or work again or travel again or find a new job again. So there's a high level of uncertainty, which means our level of certainty has decreased. Yeah, makes sense? Now, interestingly, in addition to having certainty, we do need a level of uncertainty. We need a level of variety to have a balanced life. So this is the need for the unknown. This is the need for change, for new stimulus, for adventure and variety. So again, this is at our deep psychological level that we need these 6 needs, right? That we need to have and fulfill these 6 needs to be a complete human functioning well in our life and our business. So I would say our level of uncertainty is very high at the moment. We don't know what's going on week to week at the moment. So, you know, that box is ticked. We're going through a change process. Yes. Are we looking at new ways of doing business virtually, online? Yes. So there's a lot of that going on. Having said that, though, I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to get cabin fever. So, you know, I have a big bike. I went out for a ride around the block this morning. I haven't been out on the bike for about 5 days. And I was like a little kid just because I could get outside of the condo for only 30 minutes. So that was a level of uncertainty that I needed just to get outside, because in these 4 walls of the condo is becoming a bit too rigid or fixed for me. Significance. Right, so this is the 3rd of the human needs. To feel unique, of value, important, special, or needed. Right, so what do we mean here? And this is where ego plays in the most. Does ego potentially tap into certainty and uncertainty? Of course it does. Yeah, if you need to, if we go back to certainty, right, and you need to create security for your family, you're gonna turn up the volume a little bit and make sure you can provide safety and security for your family, right? So your ego might get a little bit inflated in those situations, which is fine, as long as we come back to kind of like a nice healthy baseline. Now, significance is to be that importance, right? That self-importance. So high ego or unhealthy ego is where our self-importance is wound right up. And so we look for significance by walking around with that boss title, or I'm the smartest in the room, or do it my way. And this is a really easy way where our ego can get out of control. And it's about being that importance, right? The 4th one is connection and love. So a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. Right, so what does it look like when we don't have this need? That's when we feel lonely. That's when we feel isolated. Right, so if you're living alone right now, then you might be that feeling, that need of connection and love might be a little bit less at the moment because you're living by yourself. So please make sure you reach out to your family and friends and your colleagues and the people that you care about to make sure you fill your cup of that need of connection and love. Then finally, generally speaking, when those 4 primary needs are fulfilled, now we can move on to growth, right? And expansion of capacity, capability, or understanding, as we've already covered, right? That evolution. It's part of our need as a human being on this planet to continually grow and evolve. Now, having said that, if your need of certainty is not met yet, you're going to put most of your focus on taking care of your family and your loved ones and yourself. So that's why we say that it comes down a little bit later. And then finally, contribution. So a sense of service and focus on helping others, giving and supporting to others. Right, so again, this is a primary need that we have in our existence on this planet. And of course, we move through all different levels at all different times. You don't necessarily need to have one before the other. We can move through this spectrum of human needs that we need to have, to be safe and fulfilled and well functioning on this planet. Now, if we come back to significance, yes, there are healthy ways to feel significant, right? And you might do that through contribution, for example. As you're contributing to your local community, you can feel a sense of healthy significance. Yeah. So again, this is the material from Tony Robbins. Please YouTube, Google Tony Robbins 6 human needs. It goes into very, very depth on healthy and unhealthy ways on how to fulfill each of those certain needs, because there are basically healthy ways to fulfill the need, but also unhealthy ways to fulfill the need. Now, what does all of this mean and why is this important? If you're experiencing someone with very, very strong ego, like one of the beautiful comments that someone shared about ego being something from a childhood event, it could be linked to that. So just know that if someone is displaying very, very strong ego, oftentimes they're trying to fulfill their human need of number 3, to be significant, right? So what that means is when we know, or when we become aware that they're trying to fulfill that need, we can actually have a little bit more empathy for them. And as we have empathy, then we're not reacting to them and we can respond in a different way. Now, so how can we begin to keep that ego in check? Well, firstly, this is how I like to remind myself. The green piece of the pie is what I know. The pink piece of the pie is what I know that I don't know. And there's a ton of things that I know that I don't know. I don't know how to cook a green curry, and I don't know how to fly a helicopter, and I know that I don't know how to do this, that, and the other. But what's the most interesting piece of the pie, guys, out of all of the information, the knowledge that exists in the universe, is what I don't know that I don't know. And I'm reminded of that every time I go and attend another course or another training. I'm learning something new and I'll go, whoa, what else don't I know, right? Now, remember, when we say this, what I don't know that I don't know, it means that we have zero awareness about that tool, technique, or strategy, or that thing that could potentially help me, to help me achieve my goals, to help me evolve, to help me to grow, to get promoted, or whatever it is. So always be curious, be open-minded that there's a ton of stuff that I don't know that I don't know. That's a really healthy way to keep your ego in check. So let's take a look at some top tips, please, guys. And if you'd be so kind to drop in the chat box now some other tips that you use for yourself, right? We'll talk about managing ego with others in a moment. I want to hear your top tips for managing your own ego for yourself, right? When you have all the right to let it blow out of proportion, what do you do to keep yourself in check? So please drop those in the comments. I'll share a couple to get started. Like I just said, remind yourself that there's always more to learn. Remind yourself that there's a ton of stuff that you don't know that you don't know. Acknowledge others by showing appreciation and gratitude, right? So oftentimes inflated ego is that inflated self-importance. So how do you keep your self-importance in check? Is by acknowledging and appreciating and showing gratitude to others, right? That self-importance and that significance, that's all about me. Me. So if you want to get out of that trap, then show your appreciation and your gratitude and acknowledge other people. Make other people important for some time to help keep that ego in check. If you're a leader, you can share some of your leadership decisions. What does that mean? Is you don't have to make every single decision all the time. Include your team to make some decisions together. What else, guys? What are some, inspire others, let others shine, share the vision. Accepting, that's a very powerful one as well, to be more accepting. What else, guys? What are some other tips there, please? Teach other, losing attachment to this. Yeah, okay. Be in the other's shoes, right? That's called empathy, right? So, yeah, that's a really good way to keep yourself in check. Yeah, listen more and say, self-evaluate and get inspired. Perfect, guys. You're absolutely on the right track. So give the credit away. Work on your own emotional control. So oftentimes, as we get more angry, this is when our ego raises its ugly little head. So as you control your emotions more, as you're more present, as you're more calm, then that will keep your ego in check as well. You can ask yourself this question: what other things can you do to fulfill your need of significance? Right? So what does that look like for you? Could that be to contribute to your community, to spend, extra time with your colleague to help them on the project, to, spend more time helping your kids with their homework? What else can you do to find significance in a healthy way? Surrender the need to always be right. Yeah? Especially with husbands and wives. Darling, yes? So, okay, personal story here. So in the past, Christy, my wife, and I, we've had a colourful conversation about something. And the conversation is escalating and escalating. And then I catch myself and I ask myself, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not right? And in that moment, I'll just stop to escalate the conversation and I'll have a think about it. And then I will suddenly, by moving into her shoes, I can now see her point of view. And that will allow me to just kind of surrender to that need to always be right. And of course, simply be humble and kind. Being humble is the opposite of having that inflated ego. And by being kind, that will help you to be more humble as well. Yeah. Putting yourself in new or uncomfortable situations. Yeah. Don't judge a book by its cover. Learn from leaders who have done it right. Yeah. Beautiful, guys. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So another thing that I like to remind myself when I think I'm getting a little bit high on my ego horse is just remind me that I'm a little bit of a speck of dust in the universe. Now, I'd like to transition now into how can you effectively manage or lead others who may be displaying high levels of ego. And the very, very first thing I want to mention is, again, coming back to this beautiful, amazing book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements. Right? We covered a couple of the agreements last week. Don't take things personally. Right? So this is an agreement or almost like a belief system that you could have for yourself. Don't take things personally. So what does that mean? Is if you're dealing with someone and they have a very strong ego and they're blah, 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 and they're all up in your face and doing all of this kind of high ego stuff, oftentimes, guys, in fact, all of the time, their rant, their anger, their display of ego, that's their stuff. It's not yours. You don't have to take on that blah, 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 blah from that person who is highly emotional, angry, or egotistical. So you can remind yourself always, 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 don't take anything personally. Because guess what? When you take it personally, then your emotion is going to go up. Now you have two highly emotional people, boom, that's what's going to happen. So as you learn to not take things personally, you're able to control your own ego, your own emotion, and therefore you can respond instead of reacting to the situation. So how do we do it? Okay, let's just jump straight in. How do we manage the ego in others? So most of the time, that other person who is displaying a very strong ego, they're looking for some kind of level of significance. They're trying to fulfill their human needs, right? Number 3 of significance, A lot of the time, not all of the time, and a lot of the time, that's the need that they're trying to fulfill, that need of significance. So what you might want to do is what I call stroke their ego. Now, what does that sound like? You might say something to them like, I know that you know the best way to move this project forward. I know that you know the best solution to this problem. Remember, that may or may not be true, but when you say something like that to them, in their mind, they go, that's right. You better believe it that I know everything. So what it does, guys, it helps to manage the situation. And let me tell you a real life example where this works. I was called in to do a strategic alignment session for the construction company that built one of the largest shopping malls here in Bangkok, right here on Sukhumvit Road. And so there was the chief engineer, the person who would handle the legal, the people that would buy the land. And we're talking like, you know, billion-dollar projects here. And there were only about 6 people in this group, plus the big boss. And before the workshop, I was just a one-day workshop. So about 1 week before the workshop, I went in to meet the team because I wanted to know the team so I could plan accordingly. And so I had them all sitting in the meeting room, and just for each person, I was speaking to them for just 5 minutes. How long have you been with the company? What's your role? What challenges are you facing at the moment? What's working well? Just some really simple questions to get to know them. So I asked about 2 or 3 people, and then this 4th gentleman, he was highly, highly educated, and his ego was as big as the room. And so he just blurts out, yeah, excuse me, can you tell me why you're here again? Right, now I'd already been there for 20 minutes and he knew exactly what I was doing, but he decided that it was important that he stamp his authority in that moment in time. So in that moment, I just said, well, sir, thank you for your question. I know that you guys are the experts in what you do. And he's going, that's right. And I said, now I know a little thing or two about communication. So I've been hired by your boss, who's sitting right there, to help you guys create more alignment to achieve greater project success. Now I said, if you like, I can pack up all of my shit right now. Excuse my language, this is exactly what I said to him. I can pack up all my shit right now and I can leave. What would you like me to do? Now, I don't quite know where that came from, except I was relying on my training of, you know, NLP and values and belief systems and all of that. And then he just looked at me and he said, oh no, it's okay. You may stay. I said, thank you very much. And then I continued my conversation. Now, you wouldn't believe what happened. A week later, when I was facilitating the workshop, that gentleman who was as rude as hell, he suddenly became my BFF. He became my best friend. Why? Because I stroked his ego. I let him know that he was the most important man in the room. I didn't believe it, but that's what I told him to manage the situation. And as a result, at that workshop that we had for the one day, he was like a little puppy dog, right? He was asking me questions and it was just, it blew my mind. So this is what I mean by stroking their ego. As an expert, can you tell me what you think we should do? Right, so you let them get that significance out of their system, right, without reacting, yeah, without reacting. You can call them on their BS, which was a little bit like what I did with this guy. You may choose to ignore them. Remember, people who are highly angry or highly ego, they're like those little dogs that like, and they just bark, 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 bark. So when you ignore them, they'll just go and bark to somebody else, right? So this can actually be a useful strategy to deal with someone who has a very, very high ego. Now, please, can you guys share with me in the chat box below, what are some of your tips in managing ego with others? I would love to hear your tips, please. Okay, so as those chats start to come through, you want to try different communication styles. So if you can't ignore them and you know, maybe it's a boss or someone like that, try a different communication style with them. And that might be having a direct conversation with them, right? To talk openly. It might be to have shorter communications. Yeah, so you minimize the kind of engagement that you have to have with them. Or you might simply choose to develop empathy for them because you know at some level they're trying to fulfill one of their 6 human needs, right? Often it won't be 5 or 6. It'll be 1 through to 4. Oftentimes it can be level 1, that level of certainty that I am the boss. Oh, most of the time though, guys, it is the need for significance. Yeah. Inquiring into their needs. Yeah. When you ask them what is important to you or what do you need, that's what they love. People with high ego, it's all about them. So you flip it around and say, tell me, what do you need? How can I be of service to you? Right? So find out what is important to them. That's a really, really good way to deal with someone who has a high ego. And then you may need to give them feedback, right? Some kind of direct feedback. Now, next week's webinar, we've had a lot of requests on this. I'm going to teach you how to give effective feedback, either downstream to your subordinates, to your peers, or even upstream to your boss or direct supervisor, or your husband or your wife, right? How to give effective feedback, that's going to be next week. So very simply here, yeah, an open-ended conversation to create a sense of belonging, perfect way. Yeah, do your best to be positive. These are also other good ways. Yeah, smile. You can wrap up smile with ignoring them. So they're doing their thing, blah, 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 blah. You just like this. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Then you can say, anything else? Anything else? Let them vent, let them get it out of their system, let their emotion calm back down. Now you can have a discussion as 2 mature adults. Perfect. Awesome. So 5 essential leadership tips and skills that we need to have. I know that you guys know all this already. You know, communication, motivation, positivity, creativity, feedback. We're covering feedback next week. But there's one foundational skill that we need to have that actually incorporates all 5 of these skills you can see on your screen right now. And that key skill that kind of underpins or is the foundation for all of these is what we call influence. And so as a leader, whether you're leading face-to-face or whether you're leading virtually, whether you're a new leader or you aspire to be one or you're the CEO, your ability to influence is the most valuable skill that you can have as a leader. So let's take a look at some of the distinctions of how we can influence our teams to be more engaged, to create and develop a high performing team. Because again, how do we do that is you must have, yes, communication, motivation, and positivity, of course, but we must have the ability to influence. So influence, let's take a quick look at the definition, is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone, right? Now remember, you can tell people what to do, but that is not influence. That's telling them what to do. The trap with that is if you tell someone what to do, there's a high probability that they will reject or resist what it is that you're telling them to do. So as much as possible, we want to influence them to come up with their own solutions. We want to influence them towards a certain outcome. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Firstly, we need to understand that there are 2 key emotional states that we need to be feeling, that we need to experience in order to influence someone at the highest level. Now, if you remember, guys, from a couple of webinars ago, the thoughts that we have moment to moment, together with our body language, our physiology, the synergy of the 2 creates our emotional state. Our emotional state creates our behavior, and our behavior is simply our actions or what we do. And what we do determines our results. So in summary, our emotional state is directly proportional to the results that we create in our life and business. So what does that mean is if you want to create better results, you need to be in a more positive, more high energy, high emotional state, right? Positive emotion, I mean, by the way, as well. So influence is exactly the same. If influence is the result that you want to achieve, right? You want to influence your team to do a project. You want to influence a certain outcome. You want to influence that task gets complete on time. You want to influence whatever it is, your husband or your wife. There are two key emotional states that you want to be able to tap into like a switch to be able to feel that right here, right now. Who can have a guess? Who can tell me what those two emotions might be? I'll give you quickly 30 seconds. Who can tell me what are the two most important emotional states that you need to be in, that you need to be feeling in order to influence at the highest level? How do you influence people who are allergic to being influenced? You choose someone else to influence. Remember, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So choose your battles wisely is what I would say. Empathy, peak emotional state, positive, yes. Joy, humility, powerful. Anger. Anger is a tool that can be used in certain situations. Let's save that for another webinar though. I want to keep it more positive today. Peak state, yes, common ground. Okay, let me tell you. So peak state means a peak emotional state. That answer is correct. And I'm looking for the two specific emotions. The first one is passion, right? When you're passionate about something, you will influence the world around you. Quick story. Many years ago, I was teaching an NLP class. And there was a professor in the class, and he was a professor of statistics. Now, I thought, wow, a professor of statistics, this person must really love numbers and percentages and all of that. Now, at that time, I did not like numbers. I did not like Excel spreadsheets. I did not like accounting or anything to do with numbers. Now, as I thought about this professor, let's call him Professor Bob, I got curious about, why is it that someone would dedicate their life, right, their bachelor's and master's and professor on statistics? Like, that's a lot of study. And so we sat down at lunch and I said, Professor Bob, can you tell me, like, why statistics? Why did you become a professor of statistics? And then he went like this. Luke, let me tell you about the world of statistics. He said, with statistics, I can look at the database. I can look at your existing clients. I can find the demographics of your existing clients, their age, where they come from, what are their interests. And as I become aware of those statistics, I can use that data to then target more of your key audience, the people that would love to learn from you. And he said, oh, I love statistics. And he had this 15, 20-minute conversation with me, and his passion about statistics was through the roof. I'd never seen someone so passionate about numbers. And as a result of his passion, he influenced me more than I could have ever imagined. After that 20-minute conversation, I began to research into how can I use numbers and statistics and Excel spreadsheets to help grow my business to the next level. So it was his passion that influenced me, and I had zero interest in statistics before that. Yeah? Now, who can tell me what is the other key emotion that you want to be able to tap into? Any other examples there? I love numbers too. Good. The next one is confidence, right? Not overconfidence, not arrogant. What is confidence? I think confidence is our ability to step into the unknown, right? And just do the best that you can with the resources that you have, right? Yes, you can be confident in a specific skill set. I'm talking more about that behavior of confidence. And in another word, confidence is certainty. So when I say that, the number one skill you need to have as a leader is your ability to create certainty in uncertain times, What I'm talking about here is a level of confidence. Yeah, not overconfident, not underconfident, just quietly confident that you're doing the best that you can. So when you combine your passion and your confidence, your ability to influence goes through the roof. And as a leader or as an influencer, you want to be able to turn it on like a switch, right? You don't have to be passionate and confident 24/7 like this. Oh, I'm passionate, I'm confident. Oh, look at me, look at me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you need it, right? It's a resourcefulness within you that you can tap into with the flick of a switch, right? Turn on your passion. Find something to be passionate about. Remember it. Bring it to your mind. Think about it. Feel the emotions of being passionate, and then feel certain. Feel confident. Even if you don't know exactly what you're doing, do the best that you can. And as you do that, your ability to influence will go through the roof. The other key skill, guys, in addition to influence, is rapport. And by the way, you need to have influence to build rapport and vice versa. So in other words, to be able to effectively influence others, you need to have rapport. Rapport is simply the ability to create trust and connection. Now, it's a very, very soft skill, this skill of rapport. And in our NLP training, we cover it for about an hour and a half on how to do it. But let me give you 8 quick tips on ways that you can build rapport that will help you to build more influence with others. First one is bring up a mutual interest, something in common. Oh, you have kids, I have kids. Oh, you like cats, I like cats. Oh, this football team, that football team. Whatever it is, simply find something in common. Why? Because people like people who are like them. So this is a really simple and elegant way to build rapport very, very quickly. Number 2, listen. Listening is a wonderful, beautiful way to build rapport with people and therefore be able to influence them. Give a gift, right? It doesn't need to be a gold bar. It can be bringing in some kanom, we say here in Thailand, like a snack into the office, or a little something. It doesn't have to be big. Give a referral, and that might be to a restaurant to go to after lockdown. It might be a movie to see, or a referral. If you can't do business with someone, you can refer them to someone else. That's a beautiful way to build rapport. Tell a story is a great way to build rapport. Give good service, pay a compliment, genuine compliment, right, coming from the heart, and show genuine appreciation. There are 8 great ways that you can start to build rapport with others. So who can tell me, guys, please, in the chat box now, we've got about 5 minutes to wrap up here. Other top tips for greater influence, yeah? So be in a high energy or peak state, like some of you guys mentioned, passion and confidence, right? It could also be positivity, joy, you know, excitement, that they're also high energy states. Build rapport. Now, rapport is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time thing, right? So you continually need to build and develop rapport, build and develop, build and develop. Think about it. Those who are married, you're in and out of rapport with your husband and wife or girlfriend, boyfriend all the time. Match their communication style is a really, really good way to do it. What else we've got here? Integrity, lead from the front, a sense of humor, be open to be influenced yourself. Absolutely. Lead by example, be a role model, guys. This is a magical, magical way to influence others. Be a role model and lead by example. Mentoring and coaching are also really, really good ways to influence your teams, because why? You're not so much directly telling them what to do. Yes, mentoring, you're telling them what to do a little bit by focusing on the solution, but coaching is all about asking and telling, yeah? Have a sense of humor, have a little bit of fun, don't be so serious all the time. Continually grow and improve is another great way to influence. And very, very quickly, guys, just to wrap up, inclusive leadership, right? So what do we mean by that? Again, if you tell people what to do, your team are just going to go away, right? Because you're not only do people don't like that, there's a risk that you'll inflate your ego if you continually tell people what to do. So stay open to input yourself, show diplomacy, right? And facilitate a dialogue. So very, very quickly, when you're talking about inclusive leadership, we're talking about including others. Brainstorm targets and action plans and challenges and projects, and do that together. Don't walk up with an action plan and say, hey guys, here you go, do this. Invest the time necessary to include the team on those projects and action plans. Have an open communication, right? So that your team feels safe to come and say, hey boss, you've been a bit of a douchebag. Would you mind to tone it back a bit? I would love it if my staff told me that. Create a safe space for others to share so they can have that open communication. Less telling, more asking. And this is really the philosophy of being a coach, or using coaching as a tool in your leadership journey. Compassion, empower, democracy, diplomacy. Focus on the strengths, right? Can be a good way to include teams as well. Or you can even do kind of like role sharing, where they begin to learn from each other. You can allow others to make key decisions from time to time when appropriate, and then utilize some of those coaching principles, right? That's going to be one of the best ways to keep your own ego in check, plus you're empowering others through the coaching process. Yeah. So very quickly, all these tools and techniques I do with all of our clients all around the region. So wherever you are, after lockdown, we're happy to come and work with you, or we can do online webinars as well for your company, customized. We have an NLP training coming up. So if you've enjoyed some of these tools, tips and techniques, these are from the world of NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, happening here in Bangkok in July. And also we have our ICF coaching leadership certification program as well. That's on the 3rd to 6th of July. We're also, by popular demand, a lot of people have been asking, how can I learn or become a qualified ICF coach online because of the uncertainty at the moment? Well, we're going to provide this program online. More details to follow on that in the email. Yes, and then if you are a company, you're in HR or L&D, or you're the decision maker, we do provide a Thrive online webinar series customized to your industry and the needs of your team. Once a week, either myself or Coach Christy will come online for between 45 minutes and a 90-minute session with your teams to help them achieve that next level of success, whatever it is that you need. So as always, guys, please be the change that you want to see in the world. The change does start with you. You do have the ability to create the change in your organization, in your life. So thank you all very, very much. Really appreciate everyone coming onto the call today. I'll send you an email with the link to our YouTube channel. Let's unmute everyone very quickly so we can all say goodbye to each other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Hope to see you next week. Stay safe, stay awesome. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.